Hello, universe. Today I thought I would share some funny quotes from this textbook, What is a Quantum Field Theory? A First Introduction for Mathematicians by Michael Talagrand. Okay? So, a little preface here. Talagrand is a famous mathematician, highly qualified mathematician, who decided to learn quantum field theory late in his career. And he was quoted saying that it was the hardest thing he's ever undertaken or had to do in all of his years of study. And he struggled finding an introductory textbook that suited him as a mathematician, and he was very upset and frustrated with the pedagogy and basically the writing style of physics textbook, especially in quantum field theory. And I would definitely concur with him there. So let me just share with you some hilarious quotes out of this textbook. So starting off with the quotes at the start of the textbook. Okay, so he quotes Richard Feynman and says, "If all of mathematics were to disappear, physics would be set back exactly 1 week." It's a quote by Richard Feynman. That's hilarious. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that if all of mathematics were to disappear, physics would actually be set back exactly 1 week? Then there's a great quote, which I really like actually, by Albert Einstein. "Physics should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." And then another hilarious quote by Sidney Coleman. "The career of a young theoretical physicist consists of treating the harmonic oscillator in ever-increasing levels of abstraction." That's very relatable. Okay, so let me just show you a couple quotes here that are really funny. So I think we need to go to page 7 here, part 1, okay? So let me just read you this paragraph here. "Here seems to be a good place to comment on the level of mathematical rigor of the book. A very significant part, particularly in the appendices, is just standard, fully rigorous mathematics, since after all, this is what this author is best qualified to write. Another significant part is basically rigorous, in quotes, in the sense that it could probably be made rigorous, but the complication of doing so would obscure the main purpose, and whenever the choice arises, we choose clarity over formality. And then, the rest of this book takes place outside mathematics, in the physicist's fairyland, where one manipulates objects whose very existence is rather dubious." And then in the footnote, "and one even proves theorems about them." So I thought this was hilarious, okay? He says, the rest of this book takes place outside of mathematics, in the physicist's fairyland, where one manipulates objects whose very existence is rather dubious, and one even proves theorems about them. Now this quote just gets funnier and funnier the more you know about quantum field theory, because when I took quantum field theory the class, this is very accurate, okay? They are like, quantum field theory is literally taking place in a fairyland. I mean, it's just insane, the calculations and the infinities that they're juggling around, okay? The other quote that I wanted to share with you, this is a funny one. So it's a footnote here, and they're defining the Dirac distribution, okay, the delta function. They're defining the delta function as a distribution, which is how it should be defined, right, as an element of the dual space. Okay, now he says at the end of at the end of this kind of formal, or not formal, but at the end of this definition of the delta function, he says, "More generally, we will stay very informal. Everything we say at this stage could be made rigorous, but this is not our objective." And then in the footnote it says, "It makes no sense to carefully climb molehills when the Himalayas are waiting for us." So that's hilarious. I'll quote it one more time. So at the end of the textbooks he says, "More generally we will stay very informal. Everything we say at this stage could be made more rigorous, but this is not our objective. It makes no sense to carefully climb molehills when the Himalayas are waiting for us." I thought that was hilarious when I first read it. And then one last thing that I thought was hilarious. By the way, this is a really good book. I'm not trying to hate on this book. This book is like super, super good. Especially so far I really like the treatment of Stone's theorem, okay? And it's just a really great resource to have if you're a mathematician or if you're a physicist. It's a great perspective from a very famous and highly qualified mathematician, Talagrand, okay? So I highly recommend the book. Now, as a student in quantum field theory, I got this book before I started taking the quantum field theory class. I got it a while ago, but when I took the quantum field theory class, we were dealing with path integrals, and I decided to think about, okay, well, what does this mathematician have to say about path integrals, right? So I went to the appendix here, and I looked for path integrals. Let me just find the appendix and kind of just take you along the journey, which shocked me here. So if we look at the, sorry, not the appendix, the index here, okay? So, yeah, here's our index page. So I find the index and I search for path integral. And what do you know? It is in the index, okay? Path integral page 540, okay? So I'm like, oh, I'm so super excited. I wonder what he has to say about the path integral. So I go all the way to page 540, okay? And it's hilarious. Okay, here's what it says. So, so there's a paragraph that says, even after one has shown that the Hamiltonian density leads to a Lorentz invariant theory, it is still absolutely not obvious that this theory predicts the same scattering amplitudes as the deformed theory obtained by adding new vertices, as in sections 17.2 and 17.3. Okay? So, in conclusion, matters are consistent. Field renormalization does yield a theory equivalent to the theory of section 17.2 and 17.3, but it does not do so in a clean way. This is the price to pay for using Hamiltonian formalism, which breaks Lorentz invariance. And then the footnote here, footnote says, in contrast, the path integral formalism respects this invariance at every step. That's the Lorentz invariance, okay? Path integrals are, however, not mathematically defined, which is why we have not used them at all. A bombshell claim. A bombshell claim right here. I was shocked. I was flabbergasted when I read this. An entire textbook on quantum field theory doesn't mention the path integral once. And the only time it mentions the path integral is in a footnote on page 540. And that footnote says, in contrast, the path integral formalism respects this Lorentz invariance at every step. Path integrals are, however, not mathematically defined, which is why we have not used them at all. Wow. Crazy. I honestly would have liked to see more from Talagrand and maybe see his thoughts on what is needed mathematically to define the path integral. But that is just a bombshell claim, because the path integral, for those of you who don't know, is central to quantum field theory. Because of its Lorentz invariant, it's manifestly Lorentz invariant, and furthermore, it creates a variational structure which allows one to essentially perform the calculations necessary to do the perturbation theory for a given Lagrangian. Okay, so of course you can do everything in the Hamiltonian formalism, but it's not nearly as straightforward. The path integral is a much more seamless way of actually performing the calculations that you need in quantum field theory. Now, you don't technically need the path integral, but it's really nice to have that variational structure. And it's not mathematically well defined. That's what Talagrand is pointing out here. And that's crazy because it's pretty central to the modern quantum field theory, and it is not mathematically defined. So these are just some hilarious quotes from this textbook. This textbook is filled with quotes like this, okay? Talagrand is very upset. He's very salty at the physics community. He's very upset with physicists. He thinks that physicists don't know enough math and they're not mathematically rigorous enough. And they're basically playing with fire. And what they'll do, he says, is they'll just ignore problems, ignore issues in their theory until it turns around and bites them in the back, or when they find themselves, ignoring some red flags and then end up at the edge of a cliff and don't know how to turn back. So yeah, he's very upset with the state of physics. He's very upset with the state of quantum field theory, as was I. I'm not as much of an expert as Talagrand in math, nor am I as qualified as Talagrand in quantum field theory. But from the little that I've seen in taking the graduate course and studying the introduction to quantum field theory at the graduate level, I would certainly agree with Talagrand that there is a lack of mathematical rigor. There's a lack of mathematical background and structure that is so needed in any physical theory of the universe. And so it is truly upsetting. I mean, it is truly upsetting, deeply upsetting to my core when I learned quantum field theory. And it's possibly due to my own lack of understanding. I think that the idea of quantum field theory is certainly very beautiful. The idea of classical field theory is extremely powerful, of course. And I'm not denying the importance or relevance of this theory. But I'm just saying that it is deeply upsetting the current mathematical state of the theory. And I think that many would agree with me, including Talagrand, as he very, very strongly voices in this book over and over again in a kind of a comical way. So it's honestly, it's a great read. It's a fun read. It's pretty hard, but I'd highly recommend it.